All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are now going to get into talking about the Broncos and their surprise win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa, winning 26-7. Again, this NFL season so far has been very interesting. And the NFL does remind you that just when you think you know everything, you don't. And this is one of those games. I really didn't see this coming. Now you could point to the fact that the Bucs, they were missing some key guys on defense in this game, but Baker Mayfield was playing well these first couple weeks. So even with that, you thought that the Bucs were still going to handle their business at home, and that was not the case from start to finish. The Broncos, they dominated this game. Um, Scored a touchdown and set the tone right away. Went 6 plays, 70 yards, about 4 minutes of time possession. Bo Nix opened up that drive with a 22-yard pass play to Cortland Sutton, then 31 yards to Josh Reynolds, and then Bo Nix from 3 yards out scrambled for a 3-yard touchdown to make it 7-0. Buccaneers punted on their first possession. Broncos punted on their next possession. However, Baker Mayfield on the Bucs' second possession of the game throws an interception. This was intended for Mike Evans, and it was returned for 37 yards. And that set up the Broncos for another touchdown. Chase McLaughlin that's their kicker. Jaleel McLaughlin, sorry. He scores a touchdown. This was on 4th and goal. And I thought the Buccaneers had him, but made a couple of shifty moves and was able to get into the end zone. And at that point, I was like, yeah, it doesn't look good for the Buccaneers right now. Bucs then punted again, and then the Broncos ended up scoring. This time it was a field goal. Will Lutz from 43 yards out. So, yeah, it was 17-0. Well, he scored 14 points in the first quarter. But, yeah, 17-0 at that point. And then after that, the Buccaneers, they turned it over on downs. Broncos fumbled, which the Bucs then turned into a touchdown. Bucky Irving had a 32-yard run in this on this drive. Baker Mayfield connected with Chris Godwin for a 5-yard touchdown. Godwin has been great so far this year, so that made it 17-7. Broncos then went down the field. Another field goal by Will Lutz, 38-yarder. And that was the score at the half. And the Broncos, they only scored 6 points in the second half. The Bucs, they got shut out in the second half. All punts in the third quarter, and then another Will Lutz field goal, a 33-yard field goal. So yeah, that made it 23-7. And then, then it was 26-7. Another field goal by Will Lutz, another 43-yarder. Bucs turned it over on downs. They fumbled, and yeah, that was pretty much it. 6 points were scored in the second half. Baker Mayfield was not great, 25 of 33, 163 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Bucky Irving was the leading rusher, 70 yards rushing on the ground. Chris Godwin, 6 for 53 and a touchdown. Cade Otton got it going, 7 receptions for 47 yards. Mike Evans only had 2 for 17, had a quiet day. Cade Otton actually had a fumble in this game. No sacks by the Bucs defense, could not get any pressure on Bo Nix. And Bo Nix went 25 of 36 for 216 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Had 47 yards rushing and a touchdown. Cortland Sutton was the leading receiver, 7 receptions for 68 yards. Javonte Williams lost a fumble in this game. 7 sacks by the Broncos defense. So their defense showed up in this game. And yeah, the Broncos, they got a win, which I did not expect. I thought the Bucs were going to get it done and improve to 3-0, but now they are, now they're 2-1, and they take on the Eagles this upcoming week, and that's going to be a tough game because you see what the Eagles did to that Saints offense that was rolling these first couple weeks of the year, and the Buccaneers couldn't get anything going on offense. So, I mean, look, these kinds of games happen. I'm not going to just jump off of the Baker Mayfield bandwagon, and I'm not going to jump off of the Saints bandwagon either. I mean, I think the Saints, it was a tough game that they lost, but I still think, they're going to be in the mix. This NFC South is going to be very competitive. So, I'm not going to say, oh, they lost to the Broncos here. That's it. Now they're going to go in a downward spiral. No, I'm not going to say that. But the Bucs, they got a tough game coming up, as well as the Saints. A big divisional game there. Taking on the Falcons in Atlanta. And then you got the Panthers. Panthers picked up a win. So you got a couple of 2-1 teams, and you got a couple of 1-2 teams. So that division is going to be very competitive. And maybe the Panthers continue to make noise with Andy Dalton now at quarterback. I mean, they looked like a much different team than what we saw in the previous 2 weeks now with Andy Dalton at quarterback. Although Adam Thielen was placed on IR, so that's that affects that offense a little bit. But yeah, no, you got to give the Broncos credit here. Their defense, that was, Bo Nix did what he was supposed to do. Had his moments, but the Broncos defense, they really shut down the Bucs offense in this game. And yeah, now I think next week or this week coming up, they take on the Jets at MetLife, so we'll see how that goes. I mean, the Jets, their defense showed up, played really well against the Patriots, although you could say, well, the Patriots offense is not great, but that's going to be a test for Bo Nix in that offense. Can they repeat what they did in this game? I'm not sure, because the Jets defense is not banged up like the Bucs defense is. So, but we'll see how that defense matches up against Aaron Rodgers and that Jets offense. Can they give Aaron Rodgers a hard time, similar to what the 49ers did? But I can tell you that rust is gone for the most part from Aaron Rodgers. He looked really good, last Thursday. So, that'll be a test for the Broncos. But, them picking up a win here was big because, again, I don't really have the Broncos winning a lot of games this year. But this is at least encouraging that they were able to, pick up a win. But I think more of the story was the Broncos defense, So we'll see what happens going forward. Like I said, when they take on the Jets, and then for the Buccaneers, like I said, they take on the Eagles. And last year, they played the Eagles twice. And the first game, the Eagles dominated. The second game, the Buccaneers dominated, because the Eagles were just in a free fall at that point. And I feel like the Eagles team that we're going to see on Sunday when they take on the Buccaneers is going to be more of the Eagles team that we saw against the Saints. So that's going to be an interesting game. Both teams are 2-1 going into this game. So obviously we'll talk about it on Friday when we preview all of the games. But yeah, it's how the Eagles defense played on Sunday, that really showed me something. So yeah, so this was one of the surprising games of the weekend. Let me know what you guys think, though, about this game. What were some of your takeaways from it? Again, don't want to overreact to things. But, you saw the Buccaneers lose. You saw the Saints. They only put up 12 points against the Eagles. Those teams have kind of come back down to earth a little bit. And like I said, this NFC South is going to be very competitive. Because I still think the Falcons, although the Falcons in week 1 was not great, but the Steelers didn't score any touchdowns. Week 2 they had that comeback win against the Eagles, and then they almost beat the Chiefs. They probably should have beaten the Chiefs, but it didn't happen. So yeah, this division was kind of a laughing stock at one point. That's not the case anymore. So yeah, we'll see what happens on Sunday when these teams go up against their respective opponents. Again, the Broncos got to stay east to take on the Jets, and the Bucs. They're going to be right where they are. They got the Eagles coming to town now. So let me know what you guys think about this game. Like I said, let me know in the comments. So when we come back from our next break, we will talk about the New York Giants. We'll talk about their first win of the season over the Cleveland Browns. And, we'll also talk about, similar to like we did in the first segment, we'll talk about the quarterback for the Browns as well, Deshaun Watson, who once again just did not play well. And Browns might have to make a decision at some point because this season could unravel if, he continues to play bad. And that was more of the case here. And of course, we're going to give the Giants their flowers for picking up the win because I'll be honest, I thought this would be a game that they could win. I just didn't know if they would win. And that's what ended up happening. So we will get into all that when we come back from our next break. Obviously, the theme of the show so far has been, defense. Because the Lions' defense, they played well. The Packers' defense played well. The who we just talked about here in this segment, the Broncos, their defense, and now we're going to talk about another defense that played well with the Giants. So this was kind of a defensive themed show, if you really think about it. So yeah, we'll get into the specifics of that when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.